This is the Project Management Podcast. We bring project management topics to beginners and experts. Find us on the web at www.thepmpodcast.com or send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com.
Hello and welcome to episode number 99. I am Cornelius Fichtner. This is the Project Management Podcast for the 28th of June 2008. Nice to have you with us. Several quality-related problems are unique to projects. For one, quality is difficult to measure. In fact, often key stakeholders cannot evaluate the true quality of the results until you actually deliver it to them, and then it's way too late to do anything to resolve the gaps and problems. Also, projects often produce something new, so there are few standards against which you can evaluate good results. So this means we are now faced with the problem of having to measure something that is difficult to define and something that nobody has seen before. Yeah, it's a problem. Stacey Goff, president of Project Experts, recently wrote a paper on exactly this issue. We welcome him back on the program to discuss his definition of quality, how using measures and indicators can help, learn about his favorite quality indicator, and you'll hear a number of tips from his quality management toolkit, enabling you to measure quality on your projects. We've been doing quite a number of giveaways in the past few episodes, and we have a couple of winners to announce today as well. And the lucky names here, they're going to win a copy of Jack Ferraro's book, The Strategic Project Leader, which we've been giving away in the past couple of weeks. First of all, the winner from among our premium podcast subscriber, his name is Maarten Rotteweil. And then we also have a winner from among the listeners of the free podcast, and his name is, and I'm going to definitely mess this one up, Stig Lykke Iversen. So, very sorry if I totally messed up your name there. So, Maarten and Stig, you are the lucky winners of one book, one copy of the Strategic Project Leader book from Jack Ferraro. And this is, of course, the moment when I, once again, would like to remind you of the fact that we not only offer the free Project Management Podcast, but also the premium Project Management Podcast. With the premium subscription, you not only get all the free episodes, but we also have additional episodes that are only available for premium listeners, and you automatically get entered into every single one of our giveaways. Next, let us move on to a new gizmo that I found for you. And this one is all about making decisions. So, do you have to make a lot of decisions on your project? And wouldn't it be just great if there were a sort of decision-making tool that could help you make that whole process easier? Well, I found Insight Tree for you, and to discuss this tool with us, I contacted the CEO, Oliver Lehmann. And yes, this is the Oliver Lehmann that many of you who've recently taken the PMP exam may know from his fabulous 75 free PMP sample exam questions that are available via his website. So here's Oliver on Insight Tree. Hallo Oliver und herzlich willkommen auf dem Podcast.
Ja, hallo Cornelius. Freut mich hier zu sein.
What is Insight Tree?
Insight Tree is a software tool to rapidly build decision trees for complex decision situations when there is a high level of uncertainty.
And what kind of companies are using this type of software? What type of decisions do they have to make?
We had a predecessor product called Occam's Tree over 3 years now. Most users came from energy and exploration industries, where they used it for decisions with risks with very low probability, but impact somewhere in the millions. But we believe you can apply it in any kind of industry where you have to make decisions and where you understand to a certain degree what uncertainties are coming up along with this decision.
And how will the tool help me in project management?
Decision tree analysis is described in PMBOK Guide in the risk management section. So it is a traditional tool in project management anyway. And in addition, I believe that decision making generally under uncertainty is a basic element of project management. I think a project manager can have two benefits. You feed quantitative information and estimates into a clearly defined process and come out with a result that reflects a monetary optimum. The second benefit is that you can document the factors that influenced your decision just in case someone will hold you accountable for that later.
It does seem like a creative, a mental process that almost requires a human brain. How can such a skill be turned into a software?
Decision making has two aspects. There's a creative one where decisions are coming just straight from the gut, and there's also a mental and deliberate one. Insight Tree will help you for the second aspect. My proposal is use Insight Tree first to understand the monetary consequences, and then again listen to your gut.
You're currently working on a new version. You're going from Occam's Tree to Insight Tree, and you're now looking for users, for beta testers. What will the beta testers have to do, and what will they get out of it?
Our expectation is that the beta testers should just use the software in their projects. There's a feedback function in the software, and we hope that users will send us their observations and their comments on that way so that we can of course, find if there are any bugs there, that we can find these bugs and find any ways to improve the software.
And how can our listeners become beta testers of Insight Tree?
The way is very simple. They have to download the software from our website, and there they will also get a free license key with no restrictions on function. So it's fully a full version what they will get, but it will remain valid only until the end of July, and then we will see how to go on.
Okay, and that brings us right to our final question, the most important one, of course. Where can our listeners find Insight Tree?
Please go to www.visionarytools.com to download the beta version there.
Sehr schön. Vielen Dank, Oliver, für deine Zeit heute.
Danke auch, Cornelius.
And here is our Gizmos disclaimer. We do not endorse the gizmos that we present in this segment. We just want to tell you that they exist. Use your own judgment. The companies and individuals who are presenting a gizmo here do not pay us for the privilege. All right, before we now move on to the main topic, one final announcement, and that's the fact that, well, today is episode number 99, which means the next one will be episode 100. And you may remember this from previous episodes. We have a special guest on the 100th episode. In fact, it is a mystery guest. And yes, we do have yet another contest going on, a promotional giveaway. It is called Guess the Guest. To participate in our Guess the Guest contest, please stop by at our website, thepmpodcast.com, and look for the Guess the Guest announcement. It's sort of a grayish area in the middle of the page at the top. If you guess the name of the guest, then you can win a prize from our guest. But unfortunately, I cannot tell you what this prize is, because if I told you the prize, then you would immediately know who the guest is. So go ahead and have a guess. And now, our main topic, which is measuring and managing project quality with Stacey Goff. Stacey Goff is the president of Project Experts, a project management consulting, methods, tools, and training company. He is the co-founder and current secretary-treasurer of the ASAPM and the USA representative to the IPMA, the International Project Management Association. He also contributed to the success of the PMI, the Project Management Institute, since 1983. He has been a project management practitioner since the 1970s and consultant since 1982. His focus is to improve enterprise and work group project management competency, productivity, and effectiveness. Stacey provides project consulting services and presents workshops of great interest to executives, managers, project managers, and leaders, technical staff, and individual contributors. His project management tools and methods are used by enterprises and consultancies on 5 continents. His workshops have helped more than 45,000 people improve their project success. He combines his PM process insights with sensitivity for the human aspects of projects. So, enjoy the interview on measuring and managing project quality.
The Project Management Podcasts feature interview.
Today with Stacey Goff, President of Project Experts.
Hello, Stacey, and welcome back to the Project Management Podcast.
Hi, Cornelius.
We want to talk about quality today, so let us start out with a very basic but probably also very difficult question. What's the definition of quality?
First, let me state that I don't view myself as a quality expert. My area of expertise is project and program management. There are a lot of people who know a lot more about quality than I do. But in a project setting, I'm an advocate of managing quality at least as well as we manage time and cost, because the quality of the results has far more impact on business benefit realization. My definition varies with the situation. For example, sometimes quality is a function of my satisfaction with the interpersonal aspects of a transaction. Sometimes it's based on long-term experience with the product. That causes me to be a loyal customer. That's why I like Max Weideman's project glossary at maxweideman.com, where he provides multiple applicable descriptions or definitions. Pressed for a definitive answer, though, I'll go with the one from Lou Ireland that I cite in my Measuring and Managing Quality article. Quality is the totality of features and characteristics of a product or service that bear on its ability to satisfy stated or implied needs.
Okay, and can you then take this definition and use it to measure quality with it?
It establishes the framework for that measurement, but you can't measure just based on this. I measure anything based not on an understanding of its definition. That helps establish its scope and its impact, but on its inputs, its processes, and its outputs. And I think the best measures are proactive ones that focus on the inputs first and then the processes. Output measures are very useful as a verification, but it's too late to improve the results by then. That's one reason why maturity models that focus on processes can improve quality. It's also a reason why PM competence models that improve the inputs are a real key to project performance.
Mm-hmm. You almost answered my next question here, because the one thing I want to know from you is you often hear from people that they're saying if you have a good process in place, you will produce a product that has the required quality at the end as the output. Where do you personally stand on this?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's better to have a good process than no process whatsoever. But again, that statement disregards the inputs. Let's take an example. Let's say you're baking an exquisite dessert for your spouse. You follow the recipe, that's the process, to the letter. But your eggs that you're using are old, the chocolate's lesser quality than you needed, but it's more easily available. That's a common problem in enterprise projects. And you don't have the right blender to aerate the mix, so instead you vigorously beat the blend. That's also all too common in projects. You followed the process to the letter, but is your result what you expected? Well, I'm afraid not. So you can see the importance of the ingredients in addition to good process.
Mm-hmm. Understood. Let's talk a bit about actually measuring quality now. In your paper, you start out by saying that one way is to simply measure factors that influence quality. And the first model you write about, like you said, is the classic input, process, and output model. How do you measure quality right here?
You can measure the outputs, and we continually tend to do that based on defects. But when do you detect the defects in a project? So all those measures around the outputs, for example, good testing, which is essential, those detect the quality problems once they've been produced. So I like to establish input measures back to the recipe. looking at the quality of the ingredients is one of the most important things to measure, and then looking from there at the processes and, of course, the old thing about continuous process improvement. You don't just correct the defects, you correct the processes, and that's all part of the measurement process too.
You also suggest in the next step that we should use indicators, not just the measures that we've just heard about. We should also use indicators. What are indicators?
In the absence of really good early measurements of quality, it's important to establish some way to indicate whether you're establishing quality results, quality processes, or quality inputs or not. So indicators are things that are not quite as good as real measures, but they're better than nothing at all.
Can you give us a few examples, real-life examples of what these indicators would look like on a project?
Well, one of my favorite ones is things about the planned versus actual quality review counts, and we can get into that a little bit later. Another one, and this is important not just for understanding the quality of the project results, but also the benefit realization. There are a handful of activities in every project that are key tests of customer or client engagement, and if the right customers or clients are involved with those activities, indeed, if some of them if in some of those activities the clients are responsible for them, then you've got a high indicator of quality and acceptance of the results. On the other hand, if those people are too busy to be involved that early, chances are the benefit realization won't occur, the results won't stick, and it will be perceived by others as a low-quality project, even though you had, quote, zero defects.
We have the measures on the one hand and the indicators on the other side. And when would I use measures and when would I use indicators, or do they just simply go hand in hand, use both at the same time?
I think they go both hand in hand because measures work best on outputs. And if you can identify the outputs and consistent, useful measures, that's the best possible case. So indicators are only most useful when you can't establish hard measures. Of course, there's the danger with hard measurement of getting back to the old MBO, management by objectives mentality, where lots of people measured the things that were easy to measure rather than the things that were most relevant to the enterprise.
Let me quote something that you said in your paper, and you write here, our favorite quality indicator is the planned versus actual cumulative review count. Can you tell us what this, how this would be applied on a project?
Yeah, we can go through it quickly, and it's more.
Yeah, it's probably an hour on its own.
in the paper, but let's establish a scenario. Let's say one phase of your project has 5 planned reviews. First question: if you skip them, are you really verifying quality? So obviously, planning and completing reviews is a pretty interesting indicator that you are paying attention to quality, even if you can't measure the quality of the results yet. Now, let's drive that down another level. If by the end of the first week you should have completed one review, and you did, and not only completed the review but completed any open items, then you could score yourself 1 out of 1 or 100% on this plan versus actual cumulative review count indicator. Now let's go to the next week. The next week you planned an additional review, so by the end of that week you should have had a cumulative 2 reviews. But things kind of went wrong during that week, and you never got around to doing that review. That never happens to me, but it happens to others. Now, because you didn't complete that second review, you've only done 1 out of the planned 2 reviews, so your plan versus actual cumulative review count is only 50%. I actually track and report either as a total plan versus actual count or often as a percentage. These cumulative reviews, I report them in a status report, and that's a leading indicator that won't show up in time and cost until weeks or months after this. That's the simple example.
Okay, so let me make sure I get this right. So you're saying by just planning to have a review and then ensuring that I have done this review and I've gone through the review, that's one way of ensuring that we're looking at quality on our projects.
That's one way to indicate whether you're paying attention to quality.
Okay. So we have an indicator here. Okay.
Yeah, if I've got great measures, and later in the project we do tend to have real measures, but if I have great indicators early in a project, I'd rather catch those defects from skipped reviews earlier rather than later.
Okay. It all sounds like a lot of just common sense mixed with a collection of best practices. Is that what it is?
Well, you're exactly right. It is just common sense. The problem with common sense is it's not commonly applied. And that's the difference. In our classes, we talk about this exact phenomenon of, well, we planned all those reviews, but did we actually do them? And everybody in class will say, oh yeah, on a phase this large, we'd probably do 8 reviews. And then in the debriefing, we talk about, okay, so in class you'd say you'd do 8. Do you really do that in the real world? And often people look sheepishly at each other and say, well, no, we don't. Well, why don't we? Well, because quality is the first thing to go when we start being stressed out with time and cost constraints. As for your comment about best practices, I've got my own opinions about those, because even though some references believe in citing best practices, I find that they're very sensitive to the industry that you're in. They're even more sensitive to the corporate culture. So best practices are not universal.
And often measuring the quality and even doing these reviews is simply not enough, because in the end, it also depends on how the customer feels about the result of what was produced. So there's the element of, the subjective perception that the customer has. Is there a way to successfully and, of course, also positively manage the customer's perception of quality?
Yeah, and in fact, it's in part the thing I alluded to earlier about certain activities in every project that should be ideally driven by the customer. Examples of those are requirements elicitation, things like identifying the best alternative, participating in the test planning, actually performing the testing, the documentation, and the training. That's the TDT Troika. Those are consistently the activities that if the customer is involved with those, then and in some cases responsible for them, then they'll give the project high quality marks. If the customer is not involved, too busy, it's really hard for them to accept the results of the whole project if the customer defining activities did not have their engagement. It's more than the customer, though, because it's also the team members. So yet another indicator, not necessarily a measure, is the old managing by wandering around. Take a reading of the team members and how they feel, how their team spirit is, how their excitement level is. And that's a little bit different, of course, than fear level, still used in some organizations. Also, executive management and the managers above you are judges of the quality of the results. So in looking at quality, we consistently look at those 3 groups, the customers or clients, the team members, and the management stakeholders to the project. Each of those have different measures of what they expect to see in quality, or if not measures, at very least indicators.
All right, so that was a brief overview of your paper, Measuring and Managing Project Quality. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And I recommend to all our listeners to take a look at it, because it is an absolutely fascinating read. In closing, let's see if we can help our listeners to measure and manage quality more successfully on their projects. Would you mind, opening up your bag of tricks and give our listeners a couple of tools, maybe 2-3 tools from your personal quality management toolkit, which you found successful and which they can employ in their daily lives as project managers?
Sure, and this starts getting into the blend of all of what we call the vital signs of projects, the time, cost, risk, scope, talent, and quality. But I think the first thing that I like to establish, and this goes back to an AMA book by John Gaspari called Theory Why, is kick off the project with your executive sponsor or sponsors establishing why this project is important to him or her. Most of us make a lot of decisions, a lot of judgments during a project. And when we know why we're doing something, we're better positioned to make intelligent decisions about everything from the priorities of my time, the results that we're producing, and how good is good enough, and a bunch of things like that. Here's another thing, because that's a global thing, way down at the level of detail. When you're delegating work to other people, it's easy to toss it over the fence, and sometimes you can do that because these are people that you work with all the time. You know their style, their habits, their need for information. But give them enough information so that they can describe to you the difference between a good enough job and one that isn't good enough. One of the things I consistently see is some people spend more time than they need on activities because they can't describe what good enough looks like. And related to our discussion about reviews, make sure that people know before they start the work how the work should be reviewed. Lots of times we find out after the work is done what we should have known to begin it. So those are both a high-level view of quality, how to start it, and then a detail level view, how to deliver it.
Excellent. Thank you very much for those tools. Appreciate it. And I bet our listeners appreciate it too. Thank you very much for being on the program again today.
Thanks, Cornelius.
And that was our interview with Stacey Goff. Here's what I would like to know from you. Too often, we project managers simply don't have time to focus on the quality aspects. Tight schedules require us to ignore this particular aspect of project management. Customers want their things fast, cheap, and preferably yesterday. So how do you deal with quality management in these kind of situations? Please stop by at our website and post your reply to this question as a comment in episode number 99. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. As always, you can find us on the web at thepmpodcast.com. And if you are a PM who wants to become a PMP, you can visit pmprepcast.com. In our sister podcast, we teach you concepts, tools, and techniques that you need to know in order to pass the PMP exam. Please send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com. And when you write, please tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. From my upcoming book titled The Dictionary of Fake Project Management Terms, we look at the definition of the term, what else could it be? Quality. Quality is defined as the hemming and hawing comments that a user makes on the day that you deliver the final product to him, and with which the user indicates to you that, this is really not what I had wanted. Until next time.